Hello, welcome to Denver After Dark. Let people pile on in here because I know Substack's rolling. I wish I could see the Substack views at the same time. And I'm wondering, Doug, can we play that? Can we play the intro again? You're probably going to shake your head. Is it possible to play the intro again and freeze it at the girl taking off her shoe? Is it possible to do that? I don't know. I just thought it'd be cool. I wanted to make a point about how good that intro is. And but if you don't want to play it again, if Doug wants to wait till next week, I just want to say that I don't know if you guys noticed, it's a real flash of a woman in an alleyway taking off her shoe late at night. And it could suggest some pretty romantic things or the seedier side of life. That's me dressed up as a woman. I know, isn't that crazy? That's how good I looked 20 years ago. Doug found that footage of me, right, in a special movie. I was dressed in a black dress. That was me at 14. Okay. Looking at a Heather Thomas poster, for God's sakes. Good Lord. But it's good to see everybody tonight. It is one of the best. It is. I think actually, if there was, there should be like a Webby Award for best intro. And I think Doug should win it for Denver After Dark. So here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to put in that intro for a Webby, right, for Denver After Dark with Doug Wertel. I don't want any credit for it because it is the best. Anyway, it's great to see everybody tonight. You can see the special hat I'm wearing. Can anybody see what it says? That's right. It's another one of those hats I got from somebody because of Bigfoot. And Bigfoot is complicated. And remember, I told you guys I got a bunch of swag, but I'm wearing this specially tonight because we're going to go into some of the most awful things you can imagine with Homeland Security and how conspiracy theories play now into all of the policy of the United States government, which I warned about in 2020. And you guys know I brag about that because it's so brilliant. But we're going to go into some things that should really bother you, but also some things that are just sort of shocking, the people that are trying to push this and the grift that you're seeing with some of these individuals, and also a representative, a congresswoman who called out one of these sort of far-right hucksters based on their, it seems like, ever-changing relationship with the Epstein files, which is pretty interesting. But today we're gonna start with a story. Oh, I know, story time. So in the late 1980s, and I'm not saying that late. It's probably 86, 87. I was 16 or 17 years old, and I know that the Satanic Panic really bloomed right before that. And I wish I had told Doug beforehand that I was going to mention the movie Cobra because that's my favorite mention, the Satanic Panic times. If anybody remembers the movie Cobra with Sylvester Stallone playing Detective Cobretti, which is why they called him Cobra. Anyway, so you had Cobretti, right? So you had this sort of Satanic Panic thing. I think, was it Brigitte Nielsen, I think, was actually the co-star. I think her and Sylvester were romantically involved for some time. But you see that there's, it's the Satanic Panic, right? They take women off the street, kill them, sacrifice them. The police force is part of it, right? You had the deep state globalist conspiracy theory, which was part of the actual whole Satanic Panic premise. I mean, the writers were incredible, right? I think it's one of those sleeper hits where you had somebody so ensconced, right, in the conspiracy theory that they actually took this whole ball of conspiracy stuff and put it into one movie with Sly Stallone. And driving one of the coolest cars of all time. Oh my God, what was it? Oh, I just lost it. And I was going to say it's like was it like a 57 Plymouth or something? I'm trying to remember, but it's an incredible car. So, but anyhow, so that was 83. So when I'm talking this story, it's a little bit after that, but there are still ripples of the Satanic Panic, right? I mean, I didn't trick or treat at 16, but let's be honest, up until the age of 11 or 12, you're still out there scarfing for candy during Halloween. And your parents actually would have this sentence: watch out for the satanic worshipers. They could put a razor blade in your Snickers bar, right? And it's a 1950 Mercury. Thank you very much, Doug. I was so close with the 1957 Plymouth. But a 1950 Mercury. So anyhow, so 86, 87, I got dared, bunch of kids. I got dared because I was always sort of that guy, and a good friend of mine named Eric, and they're like, hey, would you go into this house? And they used to do these satanic sort of sacrifices there. It's sort of funny when you're 16 or 17, the first thing I didn't ask, what was your source? Well, they did satanic what? Anyway, I thought it was cool, right? I'm like, no, I did say there's no way, right? There's no way. So anyhow, this house, if you guys remember, of course you wouldn't remember. You didn't live in Centerville, Virginia, but if you look at Centerville now, it's just all built up, right? It's really close to Washington, D.C. It's in Fairfax County. Just Centerville used to be, my father and grandfather would hunt in their backyards, and now it's just full of houses. It's suburban sprawl, right? Where I actually used to walk and look for deer, there's now an Outback Steakhouse, which is pretty interesting, right? So anyhow, me and Eric, we're going up to this thing, and you know, when you're sneaking up to a house at like 1 in the morning and it's old and dilapidated, it was set probably 400 or 500 yards off, and there's four people in the car and we're listening to, something, right? A cassette, maybe 86, 87. Yeah. I think we had a cassette going. I mean, hell, I'd graduated from A-Track, I graduated from the old car hand-me-downs that I bought for $1, like my 72 Ford LTD. But what's incredible about this is that what your mind does to you when you sort of have an undeveloped mind. Now, I'm not going to say it's 16 or 17, I was some drooling idiot, but you're still growing, right? You're still credulous. And even if you think you're a reality-based teenager, you're really not. So you see and hear things that sometimes you don't think are possible. So as we're going up to this house, and I know you guys will be like, Deborah, you're so full of shit, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it went down. And you guys could tell me because it doesn't even make sense. So it was a full moon. I know. You're like, no way. Yeah, it was. And I remember it was a white house, like this lapboard siding dilapidated, the paint scraping off of it a bit. You had all that going on, in this house. But when it's late at night like that, if you're think about looking at an old house, right, with paint just sort of skimmed off, like it's sort of been scraped off at every single portion of the front portion of the house. You're looking at it's two-story, has a sharply pitched roof. So it looks like just like something you'd see at the top of the hill in a horror movie. It wasn't exactly the top of the hill, probably slight elevation, maybe the 20 to 30 foot elevation from the road, 200 to 300 yards off the road. And there was actually mist. And I know you guys are like, Deborah, you're so, but I swear to God, full moon, white house near the hill. There's mist, right? Coming up 1 or 2 in the morning. My God, it had to be before school, June or July, And I remember like, Denver, you got to go up there first. You're the one who said you're going to do it. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I sneak up to that house and the door's ajar. Now, let me tell you, of course it would be. It's an old house. You know what I thought? Somebody's in here. I don't know if you guys have heard the term pucker factor, but I probably went from a pucker factor. I was already at 5 or 6. I probably went to a pucker factor of 10, like right off the bat. And I step back from the door and I look over to my right. Now, when you look at the mist, right, it's coming out and it's probably, you guys know, I know you've probably seen it, right? In the woods when you have all that dew and you got the warmth and the cold and you have all that evaporation happening and you see that mist and it's sort of just, it's a carpet, right? Even though it's fairly opaque, it's still a carpet about 2 to 3 feet all the way to this wood line. Now the wood line, probably another 40 or 50 yards on the other side of the house, massive field surrounding it, right? Now I probably should have told you in the back, which I hadn't got to, they said there was a graveyard. I never got to that. You'll see why here. Satanic Panic time. So I take a step back. I look over to my right. And I swear to you guys, I thought I saw like a 3-foot humanoid running through the mist. Now, guys, it could be a dog or a cat or a raccoon or something or whatever. But in my mind, I was looking at like this little dwarven alien, like running down through the mist. So I did what any normal 16-year-old does. I screamed, like literally screamed and ran. And so as I run back to the car, people are like, oh my God, oh my God. Like there's a little tiny alien demon. It's a demon, you know? And like, well, Denver, what's the end of the story? That is the end of the story because we got in the car and got the hell out of there. Because I literally thought there's this tiny little demon that's going to come after me. You know what it reminds me of? And Doug, I wish we could find this. There's this 1975 movie with Karen Black, and it had this little black doll that had a knife. Oh my God. And but that's what it reminded me of. And that's, that whole story, that reminds me of every single person right now who's MAGA. They're looking at demons running through the mist that they think, and they're screaming, run to the car. But that car is sort of this MAGA theology. And the thing that really bothers me is what Stephen Miller said today. And this is the thing that I'm going to segue to, is that Stephen Miller today said at the funeral for Charlie Kirk, he said, "We are the storm. Our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion." Let me say that again. We are the storm. If you guys remember about QAnon, what was it? The storm. And what is the storm? That's going after your enemies, at that time elected leaders and things like that. Yes, the movie is the Trilogy of Terror, Doug. One of the scariest movies as a young person I've ever seen. And by the way, it was probably the Trilogy of Terror that influenced whatever I saw running through that field that night, which probably was a scared ass cat, right, that was running through there. So it made me think of that today. And I know you guys like, Denver, man, you've got some weird thoughts. But the thing is that we have something really badly happening here. If you think about the Satanic Panic and who it rolled up, right? Teachers, people having repressed memories, drawing those repressed memories from scammers, psychiatrists who said they could dig into them. The book that was written at the time about it, was it like My Name is Michelle or something? You had all these things that were happening. And people were being accused of the awfulest things, the most evil and vile things. And people were taking advantage of it, making a lot of money off it, lying. So you had this satanic panic that was rippling through America and affecting every portion of our life. And people bought into it to the point that Anton LaVey, the actual guy who led the Church of Satan, had to sue certain people to say, we ain't that. Are you kidding? And when you look back now, when you look in retrospect, obviously it wasn't. But you had the Satanic Panic. And now we have a new panic. And that panic are roving death squads of transgenders coming to kill you. That's right. Homeland Security is going to be talking about it. And there's a guy named Mike Howe who's sort of leading the charge. Used to be the president of the Heritage Foundation. Now part of oversight. As you guys see, I rolled the Charlie Kirk funeral into this. I know everybody's talking about it, and you probably, I'll touch on it on the end. But so here's what we have. So we have this guy named Mike Howe. Now and I'm looking, I got notes everywhere, guys. So, but not everywhere. So Mike Howe was in Heritage, and then he started something called the Oversight Project. Now, so you have this sort of linkage, right? He was the Heritage, one of the top dogs at Heritage. Then he started his own on the grift, but they stayed linked. So what you see is this blooming. It's almost like asexual budding of far right groups that can grift more and more and more as the universe expands. So this Mike Howe is out there writing these things, and he's very, very close to DHS. So now you're starting to see this ripple effect where they're talking about this transgender terror ideology as being part of being a DVE. Check this out. Designate transgender ideology-inspired violent extremism as domestic terrorism. What is that called? That's domestic violent extremism, or DVEs. Right now, anybody who's actually wrapped up underneath the DVE has a specific definition, right? It's a specific group, right, that had done specific things or said they're going to do specific things or dress the part, whatever, right, and do these sort of things where they come into under investigation as a domestic violent extremism group. Right now, if you're, say, one transgender person who wants to go kill people, you're part of an NVE. If you're a group, you're a nihilistic violent extremism, NVE. What I've seen the last few weeks, I've seen an incredible amount of middle-aged white males seemingly in possession of child porn. And what you're doing here is you're actually talking about this flow down right, of identifying a group for evil, regardless of their evil or not, based on, right, a dominant theology. That theology has to pick somebody. And right now, since Charlie Kirk's murder, and they said that there's been all these, transgender assassins, and I have this idea of like this transgender assassin group in the woods training, they're running around, Jill, get the flank, what? It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. So now now you're like, well, Denver, how did it get to this point? Well, we know how it gets to the point with conspiracy theories, but it's even worse than that, right? It's identifying people as targets that aren't targets based on mass hysteria or cult-like behavior, or influencing the masses with that mass hysteria from cynical, charismatic leaders, somebody like Charlie Kirk. And when you see Stephen Miller get up during his memorial service, well, you had Donald Trump saying he hates people, and Stephen Miller getting up there and saying that there's a storm coming. That is literally QAnon. That's literally the MAGA-based QAnon that came all the way through January 6th and now is metastasized until where it's one with MAGA. It's like a Leviathan. And of course, I'm right. That's where we're at. But the thing about this is very dangerous. So I want to read you something here. So when you're talking about this, the thing is, how do you identify what violent transgender ideology is? Now, I want you guys to think about that. They have to define your ideology. Now, is there a cart and horse issue here? I mean, how do you do that? What is that? Do you wait for a crime to be committed and sort of back into looking at what that group is? And I'm going to tell you where this started. I want you guys to look this up. It's the Zizians. Have you guys heard of this? Zizians, the Zizians. Now, when you're talking about the Zizians, it was transgender group. They had transgender people in there that killed some people, but they were really ultra vegetarian vegan, I think. I think they were like vegan, mad vegans, really mad vegans, right? And I'm wondering if vegans is going to become a domestic violence extremism. Let me tell you, I'm not walking down the street if I have roving bands of vegans and transgender death squads. That's going to be scary, right? So anyhow, so you have all this happening, have this bloom happening, right? Where you have the far right accusing or trying to set up this new ideology as part of the DVEs. Remember, domestic violent extremism. They're going to use the Zizians, right, as part of that issue. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole Zizian thing. That's a whole nother show. So what they did is they used this transgender group, and then they had this guy, Mike Howe, who's in front of a committee. And when you're talking about what these type of people are, we have this incredible representative. Her name is Yasmin Ansari, who wanted to call him out because what's interesting and why I'm making this linkage are the people that are deciding what violent ideology is, which is just going after a gender group or people who just want to live the way they want to live, are the very people that seem to be hiding behind the non-release of the Epstein files, even though they thought it should be at first, right? So you have this weird thing, right? And before I get to the video, this is pretty painful, and I'm going to tell you guys this. I was disfellowshipped from my church when I was a Mormon. My beautiful, young sister at the time, she was excommunicated. Because, I'm sorry, guys, as a teenager, a little addicted to fornication, you know what I mean? So, we had it, like those type of things. So we got judged by this group of men. One of the men who judged my sister, people that I talked to and would go confess my sins, was having an affair with the bishop's wife. We didn't know this at the time. Pretty sordid when it came out. And that's what I want to tell you guys. We probably have some of the most flawed individuals making decisions in this government in a way that's so damaging, so delusional, so sanity disruptive that I really don't know how to get my arms around it. And they're also liars and gaslighters. So Yasmin Ansari questioned this guy, Mike Howe. I want you to look it up. And Doug's going to play it right now for everybody. And I hope you guys can see the kind of person that you're dealing with.
The question is, do you support the public release of the Epstein files? So I just got back from a Homeland Security Committee hearing where I had the opportunity to question one of the Republican witnesses and asked him a very straightforward question. Should we release the Epstein files? Here's what he said. Speaking of sheer corruption and cover-ups for the ultra-wealthy, Mr. Howe, I know you have spent quite a lot of time talking about the importance of releasing the Epstein files, but now you're kind of parroting Trump talking points about this being a Democratic hoax. I'm wondering if, yes or no,
what did I say?
Do you support the...
No, what have I parroted about it being a hoax?
Do you support the public release of the Epstein files?
My answer is written in the op-ed in the Blaze,
yes
which you
no?
can read.
Yes or no?
Listen, ma'am, I am trying to answer your
yes
question.
or no?
The public deserves way more transparency than we've got. I've written that. You've accused me of parroting another
It would
talking
be wonderful,
point, which I have not. Bring the receipts.
He said, bring the receipts. So here are the receipts. Just a couple of days ago, he was demanding a full investigation into the Epstein files and the list and the entire scandal. Now he is completely parroting Trump talking points, saying this is a Democratic hoax, and cannot answer a simple yes or no question about whether or not these files should be released. Why? Because as always, Donald Trump and all of his loyalists want to protect billionaires and the ultra wealthy elite and help them avoid accountability.
And you're like, gosh, she's right, you know. And there were actually 2 tweets that day I went back. It's easy to source. You know, we have that one and we have this one. Oh, look at that. July 12th, 2025. Huh. You know, that's the thing, right? When you're looking at this, is that it's very hard to keep track of all the shit that's flooding the zone right now. But I want to tell everybody here, and you need to hear this, that the only reason they're going after a different gender or something of that nature is literally to distract from the Epstein files. And God damn it, Doug. He surprises me with this stuff. So, and that's the other thing too, if you're looking at this downstream, is they need to find somebody to hate for the 2026 midterms. And that means that those that maybe, I'm a straight white male, that aren't like me, are being targeted. And you know, I look throughout history and it's a really tough time to find to find a targeting cycle of straight white males, unless it's, you know, Protestant and Catholic violence, whether it's religious violence, really difficult. You know, and I just find it amazing, right, that they have to find somebody else to try to push their hate off on, because everything's failing, policies are failing and things like that. But what does it do to the people that are targeted? When you dehumanize another, when you hate on another, when you identify them as violent extremists, domestic violent extremists, what does that definition look like? What's the professional definition of that? The professional definition has to be pretty involved. It has to look at statistics and data to say that there are roving bands of transgender individuals out there trying to kill people, and that there's massive transgender underground terror cells, and that one of their goals is the overthrow of the United States government. So that's the issue. And I just saw something come up saying all the Dem ads should say they're protecting pedos. The thing is, that's not going to happen. The Dems will never do it. They don't have the guts to come out right out and do it. I'm never quite sure why. And yeah, I think that's why you see the independents. I don't know if you guys see the polling. Independents are upside down on Trump on a level that's historic. And I think when you're looking at even the polling for his handling of the economy, handling of the Epstein files, his handling of immigration, everything's upside down on a level that is really hard to grasp. Of course, you know, conspiracy theories are going to say the polls are fake. But I'm telling you guys, just like the Satanic Panic, just like when you're looking back at racism, when you're looking at identifying any group as a hate group based on something that's made up, right, completely made up, that's the issue that you have. And what's being made up is the ridiculous statistics, or the ridiculous thing that there's a bunch of transgender assassins out there. My gosh, I would hope that there's gamers on here that make a new video game of that. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? I mean, what the hell we got, right? What's going to happen here? And so this downstream effect, when you see people like Mike Howe, who look like he had his bike stolen right in front of him at least a dozen times and just said, hey, so when you have that going on, right, what do you do? This is the issue, guys. How do we protect? And when you see somebody like Donald Trump, when the 25th Amendment should be invoked just from this week. And by the way, I know Todd Gilbert, one of the attorneys that had to resign a couple months ago before Eric Siebert, both of them Republicans, right? I even know who the father-in-law is of Eric Siebert, right? I've been in Republican politics, right? When you see that happening, when you see the FCC, right, threatening networks because they're having anti-Trump material, when you see what's happening in Venezuela, when you see what's happening in Kandahar now, I mean, my God, goodness, we're going back into Afghanistan. They're going to give up the base. He's going to give the Taliban money. When you think about the crazy things that he's saying downstream, it's just to the point that if we had one good person in the Republican Party in Congress or in the cabinet, they would start saying the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked. And I never thought I would say that about any president, right? It takes a lot for me. I got to be really facts and data based. But if you think about just this week alone, it's been absolutely insane. And Doug, I just had this list up, and he loves it when I lose the list here. Okay, so here we go. Trump instructed his AG to go after specific political enemies. I already talked to you about the FCC and the fact that this is all in the last week or so, guys. Of course, the saying that there's a transgender death cult out there on Charlie Kirk and that you are the they. And guess who the they are? Us, right? Who aren't specifically MAGA, even independent, soft right Republicans, right? Moderate, soft left Democrats, hard left. And sorry, when I say soft left, soft right, that's a polling thing. And I apologize. That's the language that you use, right? And we learned that the DOJ ended his investigation to the border czar, Tom Homan, for taking a $50,000 cash bribe. Top brass is expelling journalists who don't do actually censorship for Pentagon reporting. That's pretty exciting right there. By the way, it's sarcastic. White House is giving away the TikTok deal is actually a handout to the biggest donors and companies and the oligarchs and the GOP mega donors. He's threatened very bad things if we don't retake Bagram Air Base. I told you about that. And his most senior counterterrorism officials in a Twitter spat with Laura Loomer. It's this week. Guys, this is Denver After Dark. And I tell you, it just feels dark to me. I'm trying to keep my optimism through all of this. But to have a good friend who's transgender, to talk to that individual, see the fear that they're feeling. Do you know when Charlie Kirk was shot, the first thing was it's awful Charlie Kirk was killed because it's a good person. She's incredible. The second thing she said was this. Oh, God, I hope it's not a transgender individual. It's going to happen to us. Think about that statement. Bothers me because nobody's off the mark. Really awesome to be here tonight. I know it's 28 minutes. I hope things pop up. And, I wanted to talk more about the 25th Amendment, but I think after seeing clips from the Charlie Kirk funeral today, there was some classy things actually said there, but for the most part, it was absolutely just a it looked like a campaign rally. Man, I can't imagine. Listen, guys, I'm not going to have tens of thousands of people at my funeral. If I do, great. But I definitely hope it's not a campaign rally. I hope what it is people who are there because I lived a good life. And, I'm playing some of my favorite artists are playing, playing music. I don't want a lot of, rah-rah that I'm going either up there or down there. I don't know, don't care. What I care about is how I live. And I think what you saw today, when you have a rapper, Forgasio Blow, cutting MAGA videos in the parking lot during the Charlie Kirk memorial service, you know where we stand with this. And I don't even know if Doug can bring up a picture of Forgasio Blow or whatever is into Forgasio Blow, or I don't even know what his last is. Blow his middle name? Like, is his last name Job? I mean, I don't know what it is, right? Is it glass? Is it pipe? What? Just the dumbest ass name. It actually looks like somebody shot his face with a cannon of pubic hair. I mean, I've never seen anything like it, right? And so those are the kind of things you need to look that up. So as I'm talking here tonight, and I had so much to say on the 25th Amendment and what that means and what we should do, it's never going to happen in this administration. But if there's every time we need it now. So here's what I want to do. And I know that sometimes we go longer, sometimes we go shorter. But when I talk about confrontational politics, and I've talked about this before as we go into the midterms, what are you going to do? At what point, what are you going to say? If somebody actually is any of your friends out there saying there's a transgender death cult, do you really think that there's a transgender, like a murderous ideology out there from transgenders? If we're going to do that, I mean, we have to look at, some awful things going on with, child porn and stuff like that. And I mean, and I don't want to be attached to a party, right, that's protecting a child rapist or doing rap songs from this guy. We could just look at that picture for the next 10 minutes and I have the best show ever on a site. What is this guy? I mean, look at him. An idiot. It's the same guy. Is Fergaccio blow Mike Howe? I know, it's been a weird one. I think it just caught me off guard, all of this, right? Especially when you're identifying one group as a DVE when there were 1,600 pardons of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. So as you go down the line, here's the thing. Write to your congressional representatives about what you think about an outside lobbying group trying to take advantage of Charlie Kirk's death by demonizing an entire group of people based on something that's completely untrue. Make sure that you confront anybody like that. Stop being nice. Stop. And by the way, there's really no way that you're going to have a constructive conversation. I try all the time. I still do because I wonder if I can. But it's very difficult to have a constructive conversation. If you go out there right now and you said, hey, let's just have a talk, and you talk, and there's somebody here who says that Charlie Kirk's a prophet, which he was called today, by the way, or Charlie Kirk's a martyr. Your first question should be, can a prophet be a racist? That's my first question. Go. Oh, everything was taken out of context. Have everything. Nah, I don't know if that's possible, right? When you talk about MLK, when you're talking about African-American women lacking any type of ability to think as well as a white male, everything's DEI, everything that Charlie Kirk said. There's so much material out there saying the worst things. So none of that is actually true. So as we're going in and as we go into this week, and as you guys know, I try to do something in the middle week. I'm going to try to do more and more every day. I want you guys to think about how you're going to approach these problem sets. And I'm giving you a recipe here. There's a great quote, right? There's no off-ramp from reality. And if there is, it leads to chaos, it leads to awfulness, right? But there is reality. Facts are brutal things. And you need to remember, you need to use those facts as the million-pound ship hammer that we talk about every day. There aren't little 3-foot demons running through the frickin' woods and running through the mist around a White House. That's not happening. And there are not transgender death cults. And there are people that are bad faith actors, right? Who would you would hate to look at their internet search history, that are the ones actually writing this based on conspiracy theories and hate and dehumanization. That's it. That's why you have Kash Patel lying this week about the Epstein files and about everything that he said. That's why you have all these lies and all this shit being flooding into the zone, because their number one thought leader is Steve Bannon, an avowed Leninist, and they're doing the exact kind of same stuff when you're talking about propaganda. That's what's happening. It is that flat. It's that simple. You can't even, it's so easy to see. So tonight, you guys are on Denver After Dark. I want to make sure that this is the last night we're going to be actually projecting or having video for Mighty Peculiar. We're going to go all Denver After Dark. I am going to be trying to stream live on Twitter by next week, on X. We're going to continue on Substack. So it's going to be Denver After Dark. It's going to be Substack. It's going to be X. Now, it could be we go to Instagram at some point also, but right now it's those 3 platforms. We have a lot that's happening. So I want you guys to do that. There's not going to be an outro song tonight. I think this is too serious. Yes, I'm wearing my Bigfoot hat. We can tell stories like this all week. But I need you to go look up what DVE is, what NVE is, what's being said by the Heritage Foundation, what's being said by the Oversight Project, who Mike Howell is, who Representative Yasmin Ansari is. Look at what this entire week actually encapsulated for Donald Trump. Think about the 25th Amendment, but mostly Think about how you are as a human being, because I think that's the one thing you're awesome about. And by the way, this shirt, it's very embarrassing. My wife calls this the Sex Master shirt. And I just want you guys to know, right, that at some point, these are the type of shirts that can help you spice up your life. And I just want everybody to know that as I'm about to get off here. Sorry, so to speak. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm about to leave the program. But anyway, but if there's any questions, I'm going, you know what? It's at 35 minutes. Doug, is there anybody who has a question you want to pop up there? It can be anybody. It can be a troll. It could be any question. Let's get going here just with a couple questions if we have them. I would love that. I know this is a very relaxing talk, of which we were drinking tonight, and Doug's going to tell me if there's any. He is going, oh my God, look at the number of comments. He is scrolling through comments on multiple platforms right now to find a juicy question, I think, as we're getting up in viewership. And while we're doing that, again, I hate to do this because everybody does this stuff and I don't know why, but please, I think you got to click like subscribe on YouTube. Get your friends to do that. On Substack, you sort of got to subscribe. Remember, everything's free for me. I mean, you can, I think they have something on YouTube and I saw it like special. I don't know what I'm going to provide special for you. I mean, I'm special right now. You know what I mean? Just happy. But also when you're looking on YouTube, but also if you're going, look at that. So, address my thoughts about the government shutdown. I'm happy to, Mobius 981. So here's what, yes, it's going to shut down more than likely. I think both of them, they're going to have to come to a specific point. You know what? Mobius, you know what? I'm going to caveat that now. I was at an 80% chance that there was a government shutdown, but Schumer rolled over and showed his belly. I think it was yesterday or this morning on an interview where he said he hopes and prays that they can come to an agreement with the Republicans and that Trump will come to the table. And him and Hakeem Jeffries demanded a meeting with Donald Trump, which then they actually pilloried them and made fun of them. So my guess is Schumer might send a strongly worded email, right, to make sure that he gets his point across. But right now, I do think there's it's a better than 5 in 10 chance. I think it's 70%. Let's go 70% chance of government shutdown. My guess is, though, it gets so nutty, it doesn't last longer than 7 days. If I'm right, everybody here owes me a drink. But I think that the Democrats will eventually have to completely capitulate at some point because that, it's 53-47 in the Senate. I know you guys are like, well, then it needs 60 votes. But you've seen a lot of people voting for things you never thought in the Democratic Party, even those voting, if you think about the people that were appointed by Trump and got the votes, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are capitulate. I mean, I see Fetterman going down the line already, right? That puts him at 54. You might have some other, in moderate districts. I think they're 55, maybe 56. And then there's going to be massive pressure. And then the Republicans are going to try to get away with blaming the Democrats on the shutdown. That's what the Republicans do. The Democrats don't seem to ever have the ability to be tough enough to just say, well, you guys are the majority, give us something we can sign. I just don't see Schumer being that tough. So I'm going to say a 6 to 8 day shutdown, 70% probability. How's that for an answer, Doug? What do you think about that, buddy? That's an answer. And if there's no shutdown, great. But I bet you I'm closer to right than wrong. And if not, well, there you go. What should we do if protesters or Congress start getting arrested? As some congressional representatives have already been arrested. If protesters in Congress are getting arrested, you need to go out there with them. Listen, if I'm all over the world, but if I'm in DC and I see a former congressional colleague or a colleague, that's just, or I'm walking over there and I know that sucks. I might get jacked up, but I think at some point you got to show solidarity. And if you see some protesters getting arrested or something like that, give to their legal funds if you can. I know everybody has limited funds, but they should have legal funds. When you look at congressional side, go right to their district offices and see if you can be of assistance somehow. See what you can do, right? Now, remember, so every congressional office has a federal office and a district office. A district office is the office that resides inside the district. Especially for your congressman, you can write to your district office. Tell them how you feel, right? Make sure, though, and I want you guys to do this, don't scream in their face and get spit on their face like I did. That is gross, okay? It's gross. I don't want to wear a face condom. You know what I mean? So be respectful. right? Be compassionately confrontational, but let them know how you feel. Unless it's somebody you support, go support them. They need to see you support just as much, right, as you need to protest things. You need to support the people who are doing the right thing. I want you to do that. Now, if you're in a Republican district, it could be you might have a moderate Republican. I don't know. Or you're in a far right district. Again, if you're going to do any of this, do it respectfully, but you need to come in mass, and you need to make sure that you are doing the right things and you're abiding by the law, because they're going to look for any reason to do it. If you want to get unruly, that's up to you. Remember, you have to face the consequences, but go with your conscience. Do what you think is right. Do not be violent. So that's what you do. Yes. So question by Tim Price, do you think Russian probing attacks are going to escalate? Absolutely. They've already seen they can get away with it. You got to remember drones, and Tim, drones are very difficult. So at the beginning of the war, the Russians would fly the drones down the rivers. Very difficult for radars to see them. Remember, drones, some are very small. I mean, Shaheds are much larger. But when you're looking at the probing attacks with drones, I don't think that's a big deal for them. I think they might do that when you're talking about aircraft, a little tougher, but they're doing that also. I think it will continue, especially with Trump, right, seeming to have forgotten about the Ukraine-Russian issue, right? So the EU is going to have to step up. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I think the Russians are going to push until the EU steps up. I'm going to tell you guys, past performance is indicative of future performance. Trump, sorry, I get him confused. Trump probably will not, I'm going to tell you this, will not escalate against Putin. My guess is there's some kind of backdoor deal economically for him personally that we're not aware of. That's holding that off. Also, you have Orban in Hungary, very close to Putin. So love to know more about be a fly on the wall in those backdoor conversations. So there you go, guys. And I think that does it. Raymond, what do you think of the rapture coming? I've been getting texts all day. I think the rapture is supposed to be Tuesday, right, Raymond? So yeah, I saw that. So how do you get rapture ready? First of all, you need to buy the Sex Master shirt, right, before the rapture. So you got to look good as you're being quickened or taken up into the woods, right? The other thing too, how am I ever going to run for office again? Like, God dang. So the other thing, getting with the rapture and a lot of things, I did say quickened. The other thing with it, this is like, you know what it is? You know what's weird? Highlander. Why did I just think that we're all going to be like Highlander, right? There will only be one, but there will only be a few billion. So anyway, what also is that you want to eat really clean, because a lot of times when you get quickened or taken into the air, you could get air sickness. And one of the things I worried about the rapture is a lot of vomit. Like, it's raining vomit on the people that aren't raptured because of air sickness. So what I want you guys to do, take a Dramamine on Tuesday morning, right? Wear a Hawaiian shirt, make sure you can be seen, and you want to make sure it's very loud, right? Because you want to be first in line. Because I've heard that they pick on the Hawaiian shirts who gets first in line, and it's a long line. It's a very long line. The other thing too, if you're getting ready for the rapture, here's the thing. What if you don't get raptured? A lot of gas in your car. Gas station is going to be tough, right? Because if think half the people get raptured, right? I think that was a movie, right? Anyway, wasn't that? I'm sorry. That was Marvel Comics. Anyway, so say half the people get raptured, right? So half are gone. You're going to have a lot of hard time, right? At gas stations. So fill up your vehicles. And by the way, get the little 5-gallon gas cans, get a little bit of extra gas in the back. Also have an emergency kit, jumper cables, food, and those little silver space blankets. Also make sure you have flares. My wife does this for me. Also, my wife got me something incredibly cool. It was a backpack. She monogrammed it with ESK. That is an emergency shit kit. Make sure you have toilet paper. Make sure you have extra t-shirts and underwear and socks. Make sure you have gloves. If you run out of underwear, guess what? You can cut off each finger of your glove and use that for the proppers. So anyway, that's it, guys. That's what you do for the rapture. Thank you for being here on Denver After Dark. Come back next Sunday for more, and we'll talk about when the rapture didn't happen. See you later.